With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker, the future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Buttkicker, are ready to race.
The Lionheart IndyCar Series has made the trip north of the border to the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. After missing 2 consecutive races, Adam Blocker has returned to resume his charge to a 4th consecutive Lionheart IndyCar Series title. However, today's race is not just about the title fight. 4 years ago, the Lionheart community lost one of their own, a friend to all and a member of the team that helped build Lionheart to what it is today. Today, we pay tribute to someone who will never be forgotten. This is the Patrick Taylor Memorial Grand Prix of Mosport, presented by Clipping That Apex. Hello and welcome to racespottv and coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside in the RaceSpottv commentary booth is Justin Prince. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/Indy, powered by our partners at ATVO. Let's dive straight into our Buttkicker pre-race show, and Justin, this is looking to be a very exciting race. The Canadian Tire Motorsports Park is fast, it's flowing, there is absolutely no room for mistakes, and in a title fight where Adam Blocker has dominated so far in 2021, with 6 races left to go, he will be looking to make his stamp on the championship 3 races back-to-back in October.
It's all going to be so important to be able to execute over the next few weeks if you want to make sure you're either a contender for the championship or in some cases will win said championship. You flounder at this point, you may not be able to recover, because not only do you have such a flowing racetrack like Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, but you also have 2 of the final 3 ovals of the schedule in Pocono and Chicagoland. There's so much emphasis to perform in the month of October.
And some interesting ovals, to say the very least. Pocono, the tricky triangle, very tough to make sure that you nail every single one of the 3 turns, because yes, there are only 3 turns. And of course, Chicagoland, a 1.5 miler that has produced classics in both real-world competition, but here on the Lionheart Racing Series competition side of things as well. Road America, Belle Isle, 2 road courses back-to-back to lead us all into our championship decider, the final of the Triple Crown races at the Auto Club Speedway. Here's a look at your driver standings presented by Buttkicker. You can see the advantage that Blocker enjoys even after missing 2 of the race weekends recently. Drop weeks, of course, do factor into this one. So it's a 22 race calendar not all of your points get accumulated. You'll drop some of your lowest scores, so Blocker does enjoy that benefit. Henry Bennett, as a result of some disappointment last time at Iowa, Justin, is now being closed on in. That battle for third is looking increasingly close.
And if you want to hold on to those spots, you have to perform at the road courses too on top of the ovals, right? So there's a lot of emphasis to make sure you do not slip up tonight. Connor Harrington's got a lot of pressure, as we talked about, of course, Arjuna, to try and keep on executing to make sure he doesn't fall into the grasp of Henry Bennett. But also keep in mind below the top 5 even. Ryan Oates is having a solid campaign, has a chance to move up into said top 5 if Chin starts to flounder, the defending winner at this track. Jason Brophy, he's starting to gain some ground. He's been, remember, getting a little bit better and better on the road courses. There are still several drivers who can swap around over the next few weeks to close off the campaign.
So from the driver's standings to the team standings presented by HyperX and the private label Team Hype Juggernaut, now about 250 points clear of Adrenaline Motorsports Red for the red team, defending organization champions in Adrenaline Motorsports. For Brian Carey, it's been a torrid year in terms of his luck on the hardware side of things. Maybe a good end to the season can close that gap on down. Also close between Graphics LPM and Alcantech Simulations NHR Esports for third. Adrenaline Motorsports Black, Synergy Motorsports Black, Sector 5, all close for fifth. Adrenaline Power Slide, that Adam Blocker by himself, just to give you an indication of how strong Blocker has been here in 2021, sits 8th in the team standings despite the fact that he is by himself. Here's a look then at your rookie standings powered by Buttkicker and Henry Bennett, Jason Brophy, two of the stronger rookies, but plenty of IndyCar experience shared amongst the two of them. Mike Rasmussen, a driver who's been on display in all 3 of the Lionheart sanctioned competitions here in 2021, along with Matt Taylor and Aaron Morgan, the 3 drivers fighting over the Lionheart Retro Series title, putting on a pretty good show here in the rookie standings as well. Lionel Kalisto, watch out for him, Justin. We know he can have strong performances on the road courses. It's all about finding some luck and, at a track like this, staying out of the battles that are inevitably due to form.
Yeah, he's performed very well strategy-wise. It's just been about the luck in that regard. Give a shout-out, too, to the driver at the bottom of the rookie standings for the top 10, Robert Watchker III. He just started about a month or 2 ago in IndyCar Series competition after all his success in the Speedway Series. When we see him on the racetrack, he's been a contender on the ovals for victories throughout the campaign since his first start under the factory-backed banner in the IndyCar Series. In other words, some of the newcomers have a chance to showcase how their talent fares out to be able to get a top 10 run depending on how they close things out for said season.
And Malechka, of course, did win last time the Indy cars were racing. That was at the short track of Iowa Speedway in the cornfields. Not too far behind Luis Gonzalez Nunez, a driver who had a very good run this past Monday at the Charlotte Motor Speedway and Speedway Series competition. Let's take a look at our series details brought to us by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. Of course, campaigning in the Dallara IR18, a custom fixed setup designed by Andrew Kinsella. Drivers will have the in-car tools, so specifically here on the road courses, front and rear anti-roll bar adjustments that will help loosen and tighten up the car as desired. They're all fighting for their share of just under $9,000 in cash and prizes. Triple Crown races, 2 of them in the books. The final one will see us in our season finale head to the Auto Club Speedway, so still some time to go before that, but defending series champion looking to make it 4 in a row. That is Adam Blocker, Adrenaline Motorsports Red, your defending team's champion. So let's talk a little bit more about this race itself. It's a 5th consecutive trip to Canada's home for motorsport as we pay tribute to the legacy of Patrick Taylor. 4 races have seen 4 different winners, and with 3 of the races seeing pole position visit victory lane, it should be no surprise, Justin, that, well, only 4 lead changes in every single one of our trips here in the course of history.
Keep in mind, this is a track that is somewhat narrow, especially in Sector 2, so it can be difficult to try and get a full-on run to make a pass unless you're very, very brave. There's a reason in these stock cars at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, they've been some of the most firework-filled, emotion-inducing finishes in the history of some of the NASCAR events that have come this direction that lead to fisticuffs. You need to be smart to make the pass, and in turn, it's going to be so critical to perform well in qualifying based on statistics because of that difficulty to get a pass done for the lead.
Absolutely, and defending race winner Joshua Chin will know all about that. Let's talk a bit more about this track then, Justin. I mean, what you don't get on this map is the sense of elevation changes. It is fast, it is flowing, up and down you will go, and really, there's a couple of interesting points. Right now at the bottom of your screen, you'll see that double right-hander. That's named after a great Sterling Moss. It's a double right-hand complex that really does challenge you, and even though you're only going about 100 miles an hour, that first right-hander has plenty of dirty air that drivers will have to contend with.
And there's a reason I have that section starred here at this 3.9 kilometer, 2.4 mile circuit. That's one of the tighter, hard braking zone sections into Moss Corner, and in turn, you may see drivers clip the grass and cause massive stack-ups there. There were a few drivers in some of the practice starts prior to qualifying who made that mistake with expected results. In turn, the Mario Andretti straightaway could be fairly critical for some of the push-to-passes if you do want to make a pass, but it's not a lot of time to execute it, especially before you reach the S's and White's Corner. Of course, Clayton and Quebec corners, respectively, have a lot of grass surrounding them. It's so easy to push your car off into the grass.
So 4 minutes, 30 seconds left on the qualifying clock, and Justin mentioned the Mario Andretti straightaway. I have a feeling that it's not just going to be push to pass, it's very much push to defend as well. So watch and wait to see how that one turns out. But 10 minutes drivers have, track all to themselves. 4 flying laps to set your fastest benchmark. Currently provisional pole, it is Philip Kraus. It would be his first Lionheart career pole position if he could hold on. Of course, it's a young career so far. This is his 4th race since joining the series. I tell you what we're going to do is we're going to ride around with the Lionheart King for a lap here at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, coming down the Mario Andretti straightaway. Aaron Morgan jumps up to 4th in the standings. The top 15 separated by just 0.4 of a second then.
And you see just how much Blocker's trying to make sure those tires are in the optimal temperature window before they go through these corners, three-wheeling it around here.
And so here we go, through the final corner and across the start-finish line. How brave are you through turn 1? Because it's almost flat to the floor. Blocker uses that curb on the exit to roll his momentum into turn 2. This is like an oval corner. Get yourself turned in, lift a little bit, get onto the power. Blocker runs all the way wide and then onto the anchors for the first time on the lap. Coming in through turn 3, Quebec corner. You can see Blocker's using all of the curb on offer to build his momentum up as you plunge down the hill. Watch out here. You need to keep yourself hooked up to the left-hand side, entering into Moss Corner. Get slowed down for the first part. Slow yourself a little bit more for that second part of the corner. Roll yourself onto the power, being careful not to light up the rear tires, and then roll yourself down this back straightaway. Technically, we're going through turn 6 and 7, but let's be real, we're on a straight. There's no corners right now. It's all about going foot to the floor and as fast as possible, but here we go into the S's. Turn 8. Blocker's almost flat, but now you set yourself up for the second to last corner because you need to be to the left-hand side of the track to come through White's Corner, that final turn on the track. Might see a couple of late dives down the inside during the course of the race, but Blocker across the line does improve. It's a 1:02.591, but only up to 4th position. Still plenty of drivers yet to set their fastest lap times.
Yeah, Blocker, you've seen pushed as hard as he could, but just couldn't get the execution compared to this car, Philip Kraus. And it's been the feeling of not if, but when he breaks through for a victory. It's been that type of a campaign.
Well, he went off to the grass, so that I think puts to bed his chances of going even faster, but provisional pole, don't necessarily know how much more he's going to be pushing. Connor Harrington through the final corner, 2nd in the championship. What can he do? Starts a flying lap with 1 minute 40 seconds left on the board. The race lap record here in the real world set by Dindo Capello in the Audi R10 TDI, the famed prototype machine that conquered so many tracks around the world. That was a 1:04.094, so almost 2 seconds quicker in the Stellara IR18. Harrington down the hill, in towards Moss Corner. Named after Sterling Moss because he suggested a number of changes that would increase the challenge and demand more from the drivers. Top 10 cars separated by just 0.3 of a second. It's a very difficult thing to qualify here in Lionheart competition, Justin.
We've seen, especially on the ovals throughout the campaign, that drivers can be separated by as much as 1/10 for the top 20 positions. In the road courses, you get a bit more separation. But the emphasis today, a couple small mistakes, 0.6, that puts you up to back to 20th position for Connor Harrington. A 102.561 is only enough to get him to third, but look at that power on the board from private label Team Hype's competitors, 1, 2, 3 in qualifying.
Of course, Kraus representing private label Team Hype Black, so doesn't score points in that team's championship towards the main organization, but at the very least is going to take points away from the rest of his rivals. All the drivers have pulled themselves off for qualifying as 10 seconds are left on the clock. Let's go trackside at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for qualifying results here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. So here's a look at your butt kicker starting grid. First career Lionheart pole position for Philip Kraus, the man from Appleton, Wisconsin. A 102.478, the pole position time. The king of chins on his outside. Just 300 separating those two drivers. Connor Harrington makes it 3 private label Team Hype cars in the top 3. 800 behind. Mike Rasmus, what a qualifying performance from him. We've seen some great pace from him on the road courses. Matches Harrington's time. He'll start in 4th position. The Lionheart King alongside Aaron Morgan, row number 3, plenty of road course experience. Brian Carey, Ryan Otis, 7th and 8th positions. Matt Taylor and Stefan Larkamp making an all Alcantech Simulations NHR Esports row 5, while Michael O'Brien, another driver relatively new to the IndyCar series, has shown some great pace on the road courses in Retro Series competition, starts alongside Lionel Calisto, having a great rookie campaign. Jason Brophy, one of his best qualifying performances on the road courses, he'll be alongside Chris Fowler in the number 20 machine, while the setup builder and Canadian driver Andrew Kinsella, 15th alongside Adam Frazier in 16th. Brian Beard and Tyler Graff share row number 9, while on the edge of the top 20 is Alexis Newsom and Paul Jenkins. Barrett Rolfe has been impressive in the Speedway Series, leading the point standings there in that DW12 chassis. He'll be alongside Chris Lanini. The Sandman returns to Lionheart IndyCar Series action alongside Scott Holmes in 24th. Joe Branch, Matt Houston, the final cars to set qualifying lap times. Henry Bennett with an end-of-line penalty after shenanigans at the Iowa Speedway alongside Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Dustin Wardlow, Ricky Harding, Ron Hacker, and Mike Rigney to complete our 32 cars ready to rumble here at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. As the field begins to pull itself away, to roll itself around for what is a full pace lap here, let's take the time to take a look at our onboard cameras for today's action. All 32 cars will have the onboard, but 4 of them have featured looks. And first up, it's Dustin Wardlow with the Patrick Taylor Memorial onboard, forever remembered, forever part of a legacy of the Lionheart Racing Series.
Today, with the HyperX on board, after putting on the wrong tire compound in qualifying, it's Tyler Graff. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Mike Rasmus has the Graphics Esports on board. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com.
And with the minus 273 on board camera today, it's Adam Blocker, minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Visit minus273.biz.
And so as mentioned, all 32 cars will have on-board cameras. The beauty of the iRacing service is we can place cameras wherever we want, whenever we want. But here we go, we're ready for 51 laps of action. Fuel window anywhere from 18 to 20 laps. So something that's going to be crucial here. There is so much strategy that is going to be played, Justin, mainly because 2 tire compounds available for our drivers. Black and reds, the black being the primary tire. It's a bit harder, wears a little bit more slowly, but has just a little bit less grip. Interesting to note that most drivers qualified on the red tires, electing to start on the black mark tire.
And that's almost a flip, right, from earlier in the season of the road courses where drivers wanted to start on the reds and then try and limit the amount of time in the blacks. But with some of the tire wear numbers we've seen in recent road course events, and with some of the track conditions getting hotter and hotter for some of these set events, those decisions are starting to flip-flop. So it's going to be intriguing how it all plays out today.
And of course, tire updates came to this car recently. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the Patrick Taylor Memorial Grand Prix of Mosport, presented by Clipping That Apex. We are underway in Canada for 51 laps. Adam Blocker already looking to get past Mike Rasmussen and attack the 3 cars out front, the private label Team Hype contingent. Harrington has slid his way past on on Joshua Chin, excuse me. Some side-by-side action further back. A number of cars scrambling off onto the side of the road. I believe George Sandman, Joe Branch. Oh, there's a couple of cars with some damaged front wings and rear wings already. But down the hill for the very first time, Phil Kraus already with a 0.6 of a second advantage.
That side-by-side to the opening corner for some of the competitors just helped him set up and make sure he held on to that clean air. But now it's the importance of, can he maintain, if not extend, with some of the aero drivers going to have that aero wash more trouble.
And that's Henry Bennett, a driver that we thought might be able to carve his way through the field. It looks like contact with Scott Holmes, but Adam Blocker looking to power around the outside. Not going to happen just yet. Does it open the door for Aaron Morgan to have a look? Morgan's now gotten past on Rasmussen, so great qualifying performance from Rasmussen. Starting to drop down through the field. Lap 1 in the books. Kraus, Harrington, Chin, Blocker, and Morgan, the top 5. Rasmus, Carey, Otis, Taylor, and Larkamp to complete your top 10 positions. On the left-hand side of your screen, you'll be able to take a look at the tire compounds. Black obviously indicates that primary tire. Red's only in the top 20 at this point in time for Chris Fowler, so it gives you an indication of just how preferred the black tire is going to be. And with a 20-lap fuel window, Justin, I mean, we may see some cars using that final stint of the race, which is going to be, anywhere from 10 to 13 laps, as their chance to use the red tires and really minimize the pain. And I think minimize the pain is probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we've seen in particular to Phil Byron that comes up to mind, where we've seen drivers mix up, okay, let's use the blacks here, let's use the reds here. And in turn, it was in effect the blacks which were quicker on the long run as the reds started to die off in the second half of the run. There's the possibility of that coming up here today, and that's going to be so important for some of these drivers if they want to try and differentiate in how they try and defend in turn early on in this type of event with the different compounds. Again, though, you have to remember, most of those who elect to start on the alternate tires, 13th on back still.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we saw a car starting on pit road. I think that was Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Yes.
So maybe we just expected some chaos and just electing not to fall on his sword earlier on. And out of that in the final corner, let's see what's going to happen. Oh, Lionel Kalisto tripped through the grass. I was commentating on Rallycross action earlier today. Kalisto's having his own sort of off-track experience, losing a whole heap of places. He's dropped out of the top 20, down to 25th, and the pain is going to keep on coming. In front of him, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen as the tower lights up as cars get onto the button. Chris Fowler, that car on the red tires, already burned through 3 of his 10 push-to-passes, so electing to push early. Maybe trying to make use of the red tires while they're gripping up. And of course, once those tires start to fall off, it's going to be painful, I think, to say the very least, for some of these drivers. Have to see exactly how things shake on out. So with the first 3 laps in the books and things looking like they are relatively calm, let's turn our attention to the ever-seeing racespottv replay machine. First up, it's Paul Jenkins, a little bit wide through turn 1. This is on lap 1, so fortunate for him that he's not going to lose too many more positions. Just behind him, you could see George Sandman, one of the cars involved, get some contact with the Sector 5 machine. Joe Branch goes scrambling and knocks down that front wing as well, so significant damage then on the 06 machine. That might be day done for the Sandman. Contact between one of the race first cars and Scott Holmes. Henry Bennett not really anywhere for him to go as he tries to react to what unfolds in front of him. Let's take a look at what also then happened to Lionel Kalisto into that very same corner.
Yeah, similar mistake to what some of the drivers did in practice. Just overran a little bit for the apex through Moss corner and went off into that grass. And good job to stay out of the traffic to make sure he didn't come up to the lane. Here it is again. You can see right there, starts to push a little bit with the aero wash, carrying a little too much speed. Great job to be able to make sure he doesn't go to the tires and in turn back into the racing line there. But remember, especially with those incidents on the first lap, cold tires were some of the factors in for some of those drivers' mistakes.
Absolutely. One more incident that happened while we were taking a look at the replay. This might be crucial in the team's championship. Oh, it's similar. Deja vu. Jason Brophy locks up on the entry into 5B. Pressure felt from Andrew Kinsella behind, and at least Brophy actually has to come to a stop to try and find a way to rejoin safely. That is crucial. You don't want to get a penalty from rejoining in an unsafe manner. Meanwhile, his teammates out front, still 1, 2, and 3. The gap between Kraus and Harrington is built up to just over 1 second. Further second back to the King of Chins, who sits in third. But we know Josh Chin is such a strong fuel saver. How will he elect to play out this race with 5 laps officially in the books? Gap starting to build up and down through the field. This is kind of what we expected, given that the dirty air, especially in through those first couple of corners we rode on board during qualifying, Justin. I mean, almost flat out through turn 1, slightest lift of the throttle into turn 2. So much dirty air that these cars have to deal with. And I mean, over the course of the 4 years that Lionheart competition has come here previously, we've seen now the addition of the aero screen, which has added some weight. And of course, this new tire model, which really has shaken things up.
And it's caused drivers in turn to be able to have to adapt, especially with the feelings of the car, and also make sure they utilize their tools. They make any mistakes, especially with some of the ARBs and some of the weight jacker around here, you're going to be paying the price in either slipping and sliding off the track or losing positions those who found that sweet spot for their settings for if you're in dirty air compared to clean air. All that's going to be very critical to keep in mind throughout this entire race. Keep in mind as well, look at the drivers in 10th. That's the first of the drivers on the alternates, the only one in the top 20. Chris Fowler is moving on forward towards this grouping you're following on board with.
Yeah, but he's burning through the push to passes, and so left-hand side of the screen will pull up exactly how aggressive various drivers are being. You can see Blocker and Morgan have gotten onto the bottom once, whereas, yeah, like you say, wow, Chris Fowler already burned through half of his 10 usages, so it's push to pass. It's also push to defend. So in the closing stages, I think Fowler is really going to be paying the price for this aggression early on. Back onto the button he goes, now trying to chase down Chris Fowler in front of him. Sorry, Matt Taylor in front of him.
Yeah, I was about to say, he can't chase himself down, right? He is still chasing the car down either way, but I get what you're saying. I think the reason he used so many push to passes, though, is he may have said, okay, I'm on the alternate tire. This is my time. I feel I'm going to gain the most positions, and then I might be able to defend later on if things spread out. It's a bold strategy, but it's something we've seen from Fowler on the ovals where he likes to be up towards the front, likes to be the aggressor, and in a lot of cases will try and get as big of a distance as he can from his competitors.
I think the only way that you could be trying to chase yourself if you were some sort of a cat or a dog chasing after your tail, which is always amusing.
Exactly.
It's always amusing to see, but definitely not what we expect here in Lionheart IndyCar Series competition. Down the hill, it's a tricky braking zone, so easy to lock up your tires as well, and I think Fowler just locked up the inside very slightly and lost a bit of momentum, tries to respond by getting on the button, but by the time we get to the first pit cycle, Fowler's not going to have any usages of the button left. It's an interesting strategy. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that's to put it mildly, but never know. Maybe Fowler knows something that we do not. And of course, we haven't really talked about your weather conditions, so let's briefly bring that up. 27 degrees in the air, 39 degrees Celsius on the track, but because it's almost 4 p.m. in the virtual Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Justin, it's just going to get cooler over the course of the run. It's one more thing that might really swing the balance of favor into running those red tires at the end of the stint where they maybe don't wear off as quickly.
That's a good point to bring up because it has gone down 1 degree Fahrenheit as well, of note, from 104 to 103 from the drop of the green flag track temp wise. So that with that factored in, definitely puts in the smart call of trying to wait and see how much it cools off, with it around 4:30 in sim time by the time you get towards the second stops on estimate. So it's a smart play, but it's going to be the matter of, do the weather conditions play out to your advantage for that to maximize out, or do we see drivers say, you know what, I think it's going to even not drop as much, I'm going to take the rest the first stop instead.
And Chris Fowler back onto the button, so now down to just 2 of his additional 60 horsepower allotments over the, 41 laps that are still left to go. So yeah, a long way to go, and of course, fixed setup here. So there's no car that's going to have a particular advantage, at least when it comes to the car itself. Now, the driver might be able to respond just a little bit better when it comes to that changing track conditions, but not going to be necessarily anything in the setup. Maybe just finding the right combination of front and rear anti-roll bar to get yourself around the track. 1.3 seconds the gap for the race lead. Still a private label team hype of 1, 2, and 3. Adam Blocker wasn't so confident coming into this race, but maybe just going to try and cycle himself out in a good position, as something's happened to Chris Lanini in the 92 machine, and he's being clipped by Ricky Harding coming in through Moss Corner. As Chris Fowler on the button once more. Oh, he's really not going to have any usages left. He's been using it almost at a rate of 1 per lap.
That's going to be a question I think we'd have to ask Fowler after the race, but for Chris Lanini, he's probably wondering, what could I have done differently here? Well, step 1 would have been, don't clip the grass throughout that corner. He barely held on to it the first time. That heated up his tires a little bit through Quebec corner. Then by the time he got to the Dread Moss corner, once again carried way too much speed. Similar mistake as to earlier. This time, though, went back on the curbs, and that just swung him around.
And Ricky Harding, well, he had gone Tony Hawk style, grinding himself over the curb. I don't think he really had too much time to react. I think we should ride on board with Ricky Harding here in the number 7 Sim Racing Merch Esports car. Can see the smoke in front of him. Jason Brophy finds the right way around, and Ricky Harding might have been blessed by the iRacing gods, because it doesn't look as though there's going to be too much damage to that right front clip. Now has to defend from Joe Branches, and as we'll rejoin with live coverage, Ricky Harding had a bit of an off through that very same corner, so clearly one of the problem spots today is going to be that Moss corner, as got a couple of cars that have come down onto pit road. Henry Bennett pitted a couple of laps ago, and Chris Fowler looks like he's saying, I'm done with those red mark alternate tires.
Based on the numbers, Bennett might be in a bit of fuel save mode compared to the numbers talked about before. This is, though, in the window for the others rolling in just about to say, let's take the short stint now, get ourselves onto the blacks, and go from there. It's another bold call, because in regards to Fowler, he kind of doesn't have anything to push with on those black tires anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong, he's down to 1 push to pass, or
nope.
is it 0 at this rate?
It's 0, if my timing screen is telling me no lies. So, he has really abused the push to pass button so far, spammed it, if you will, in esports parlance, but wait and see. Clean track is going to be crucial here. Might cycle out the way that he was hoping. Dustin Wardlow, Jason Brophy had... Jason Brophy's having some technical issues. There you go. iRacing gods say, no, you didn't actually hit anyone. Holds on to 20th position in front of the Candyman, Dustin Wardlow. Things really are starting to stretch on out. There's no cars really within a couple of tenths of each other than the guys just in front of this. Lionel Kalisto trying to bounce back from his own off-track excursions, chasing down Paul Jenkins in the iracing Racing number 35. Kalisto has been ultra impressive over the course of the year. Has also had a very bad luck at times, so really now just hoping that if he keeps his head down over the next 6 races, he can get some good results and finish as high up the running order as he can.
Now, really intriguing day for Kalisto. Remember, had that incident that lost him all this track position beforehand. 12th in the standings entering today with just 1 top 5 in the season and 5 top 10. So he's had decent speed. And he still, keep in mind, is within a tight battle with Brian Beard for the top 10's final spot currently with the drops factored in. Aaron Morgan and Wyland Kalisto are within 5 points of Brian Beard entering today. So there's a lot of pressure on Kalisto to try and perform, make sure he gets up there inside said top 10.
as now we watch Michael O'Brien as Andrew Kinsella just behind him, and Stefan Larkamp holding on to the final spot in the top 10. Plenty of Lionheart experience here as they work their way through turn 3 at right-hand sweeper. Seen plenty of cars, and not necessarily Indy cars, but various things on the iRacing service that have snapped loose coming out of that turn 3 complex. It is very easy to just be a little bit too aggressive getting yourself on the power. Left-hand side, when people are on the button, you will be kept up to date as the tower starts to flash like a Christmas tree. Joshua Chin, Brian Carey, the two electing to get onto the button as we're on lap 14 of 51. Only about 4 laps away from really entering into the first pit stop window, but would not be surprised if we see some drivers try the undercut. Or the black tires at the end of their stint, not necessarily that slow, and you'll have the advantage of having burned through most of your fuel. Not the full 70 liters in effect for these races. It is a slightly reduced fuel tank, so a little bit shorter stints than those who run on official iRacing service competition will be used to, but still a very long stop and a track which really does force you to be on the limit, thinking all the time as you go down the hill, hard onto the anchors, get yourself turned in through 5A, because 5B, you need to get onto the power as early as possible, because it's a long run out of 5B, out of Moss Corner, in towards the S. It's on board with Michael O'Brien, not on the button this time around.
Keep in mind, for some of these usages, I've been noticing there is a trend to them. Take, for example, Chin's usage a little while ago. Within 1 second of him is Adam Blocker. Blocker's still within the drafting distance of touch, to the point where Blocker just ran his fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:03.1. The fall off on the blacks just 3/10. That fall off on the reds, though, some of the drivers are up towards nearly a full second once they get some laps worked in. Others somewhere around 3 seconds, depending on traffic. So it's looking more and more like those blacks just get fairly comfortable. But at the same time, some of the private label team hype competitors, for example, just want to try and break away from the rest of the field and be able to dictate the whole podium.
And so Chris Fowler has gone past Ricky Harding. So that's the car that you were talking about, Justin, who's on that red mark ultimate tire that is really starting to drop off the pace. A 1:05.371 last time around. Meanwhile, fastest car on the track was your race leader, Phil Kraus, with a 1:03.110. Fastest lap denoted on your timing tower by the purple, and we'll wait and see if we go faster and faster as we burn off fuel, as we get new tires onto these machines, as the track starts to cool on off. Now 1.9 seconds behind Phil Kraus as Connor Harrington, who sits in second position. Of course, Kraus started his Lionheart campaign with 2 consecutive second-place finishes. He was hoping that Adam Blocker stepping aside might be the catalyst for a better result. Didn't end up that way, unfortunately. Motegi, not the best day for the Wisconsin native, but looking comfortable. And this is the importance of qualifying, as now you can see Connor Harrington trying to keep that gap below 2 seconds as onto the button. Chin is closed, half a second now behind the car that sits second place in the championship. Still yet to see any of the top 10 down onto pit road. Joe Branch, the most recent car to pull himself down. That was 3 laps ago. The Coca-Cola machine sits in 29th spot.
I remember Branch was involved in some of the trouble earlier, but getting back to the discussion of Phil Kraus and his performance, we've seen him across the sim racing world be a very quick driver for years whenever he's jumped in the machines. We've talked about the mentality of trying to have fun, but also having the knowledge to be able to help a lot of teams at higher levels, especially with some of the NASCAR side in particular as well, and utilizing said connections with Harrington and more so Chin. It's been impressive the time he's had in this car, in this series, keep in mind. He finished third at Iowa. He had a decent shot in that respective race, depending on how things would have fared out there. It's just been that type of a time, and as mentioned, Kraus is in control of his own destiny today. As long as he doesn't make any major mistakes, he's in a comfortable position entering these first pit stops, expecting some to peel in potentially this time on lap 18. No one's coming in as they try and stretch the fuel.
Wouldn't be surprised if we see lap 20, 21 on this first stint, just to make that last stint where we expect these major players to get onto the red mark tire to be as short as possible. Bottom right portion, you can see the track map. There is a bit of a gap starting to build throughout the field. For the cars that haven't come down onto pit road, 26 competitors separated by 45 seconds. Going to have plenty of lap traffic to be contended with at some point during this race. And you mentioned eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series stuff between the private label Team Hype cars, both Phil Krause and Jason Brophy. I believe, I'll have to talk to Krause after this one to confirm, but I believe I saw Phil Krause helping out in the iRacing Rallycross World Championship presented by Yokohama with the Nitro Circus machine of Luke Krause. Onto the button. I believe Krause was this time around, I think just stretching his legs, but onto pit road, your race leader comes. So 19 laps and counting. As he locks up the tires, doesn't look like he's made a mistake. Connor Harrington will stay out there along with Joshua Chin, Adam Blocker. Mike Razmas follows Krause onto pit road.
That's to be expected when it comes to some of these drivers. Krause has had the clean air and has had to push. The others essentially had the chance to save with a bit of the draft, sip a little bit less fuel, and in turn just able to stretch it a little bit forward. Based on the trend so far, I'm not too quite concerned yet, but the interesting mark's going to be for the air drivers who were able to push on forward and say they can split it up by 2 laps. They might be able to put in that little extra bit less fuel in the tank that could save them valuable tenths and possibly up to a second in the stops the second time around.
You're right, but also crucially, Krause has come out into some lap traffic, so that's not ideal. What does Josh Chin do? He's right on the tail of his teammate right now. I would not be surprised if Chin has saved enough fuel to go a couple of extra laps, but no. Everyone here dives onto pit road. Very late commitment from Connor Harrington there, so Harrington, Chin, Blocker, Morgan on their way down to pit road, followed in by Brian Carey, Ryan Otis, and the rest of the cars. It's going to be a very, very busy pit lane. Andrew Kinsella has done some magic to have saved enough fuel. As what's happened to Barrett Rolfe? Has he made a mockery of Moss Corner? Yes, he has. That's a very long way to be off. We'll take a look at the replay as he has to take a toe down onto pit lane. It's a race off of pit road between Chin and Blocker. Where is Phil Krause, though? Krause has already cycled through, 3 seconds clear. I think that gives you an indication of the power of the undercut here, Justin, as Blocker really attacking Joshua Chin.
And you mentioned Krause was in traffic too, right? That's actually fairly shocking. But also, I'm looking at some of the deltas. Just a bit of a quicker stop for Krause by a couple tenths quicker in the lane. That adds up to nearly a full second alone. And if you're able to execute on the full charge coming out of the pit lane, you can gain so much time on the racetrack. And for Krause in particular, despite having that car in front of him, he just was able to push on forward and utilize some of that draft, I think, in part. Now it's going to be intriguing how Chin, Blocker, and Morgan fare out and their respective grouping, because Harrington and Chin are now separated as a result of a little slower exit for Chin.
So 3 seconds up the road is Phil Krause from Connor Harrington. Andrew Kinsella is down onto pit road this time around. Adam Blocker, Aaron Morgan chasing down the king of Chins as through turn 1 they go. 8.9 seconds stationary for Andrew Kinsella, so the longest stop we've seen so far. Have a feeling that's in part due to the fact that he stayed out there so long, so has a bit more fuel to top on off, as there goes Michael O'Brien through. And remember, cold tires, so getting the tires up to temperature and pressure is going to be vital. Kinsella running wide because he just doesn't have the grip underneath him. Can Chris Fowler take advantage? Side by side, Fowler off into the grass. Kinsella will hold on. Fowler loses not 1, not 2, but 3 positions as a result.
Remember all the push-to-passes used on the first stint? That one mistake just about capped things off and how his night has gone. Using 10 push-to-passes in 10 laps. Is it surprising me, first of all? He just lost all the positions he had gained as a result of pushing hard on the red. So now it's going to be Fowler in a very tough spot where he might be going backwards from here on out. Other than that, pretty smooth when it comes to this grouping now that they've settled on down.
We'll have to wait and see. He'll have to pay the Pied Piper, as it were. Let's go ahead and take a look then as the cycle has come to a close. What happened to Barrett Rolfe. He locks up the right front and then spears into the wall, so that's why immediately tows himself onto pit road. Couldn't really see from the angle that we had taken a look at it from, but that explains why there was no attempt to rejoin the racetrack. On board with the Ascari Autosport machine, and Barrett Rolfe, well, agonizing slow roll into the tires. That is day done for the number 33. Turn our attention as well to something that happened to Michael O'Brien. He's coming through turn 2, so I think maybe his tire's not up to temperature and pressure. Yeah, good job to hold on to that car, because we could the difference between the grip on the gravel, the asphalt, and the grass itself is very, very stark, so sometimes you just go off and you lose control. Similarly, good car control from Chris Fowler, getting the rear out there and drifting a little bit.
Yeah, Fowler's lucky he didn't have his entire race fall apart right there with that drift as he went through the marbles. And keep in mind, that's about where they lay out, with it being just out of the normal racing groove and where the rubber in turn lays down. Great job to save around. Meanwhile, Chin doing a great job to continue to defend in this battle to try and hold on to the podium positions.
And so closing on up then is Adam Blocker, only about 3/10 behind. Still 8 usages, I should say, of the push to passes left, as we're getting word from the paddock that might be an issue for Dustin Wardlow. Might not have actually taken tires on his pit stop, so that's not going to be the most fun of experiences, to put it lightly. Tires very much on the edge at this track over the course of a run. Let's bring in then the man behind Lionheart himself, George Anzaldo, to talk a little bit about the man that we are paying tribute to here today. George, we got you on the line?
Absolutely. Thanks, Arjuna. How you doing, Justin?
Great to have you then in the RaceSpot booth. And yeah, I mean, talk to us a little bit about Patrick, because unfortunately none of us here at RaceSpot got the pleasure of getting to know him, but from the little that we've heard, a man who in the very short time that he was around the Lionheart community really did a lot and touched a lot of people.
Yeah, he was definitely a very special part of Lionheart. He was certainly a big part of the league's growth in the early years of Lionheart. He helped the league progress with ideas such as our media guides. He helped with writing pre- and post-race articles, as well as helped me with the day-to-day operations of running the league. I know that he would have been a continued part of the league's growth, and that he's definitely looking down at us with pride at what we've been able to accomplish to this point. He certainly represented what's special about the sim racing community, as well as everything that is good about the Lionheart Racing Series. He proved that you can have fierce competition, but at the end of the day, still be respectful to one another. He truly, as we like to say, was a friend to all and the glue that held us together.
And as
those 2 short...
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I thought you were done.
I was going to say, in those 2 short years that we were lucky to know him, he left with us a lasting memory of kindness and friendship that will forever be a part of the Lionheart Racing Series. And just with that, just want to say thank you for allowing me to come in here and talk a little bit about Patrick. He's certainly, he was one of the best friends that you could meet in this community, and he really left an impact on this league that we still continue to remember him today. And as long as there is a Lionheart Racing Series, we will have a memorial race for him every year, just to remember him and what he did for the league.
And as we take a look at our sim experience driver profile, that is Patrick Taylor. I mean, talk to us a little bit then about him being the inaugural winner of the Dan Weldon Driver of the Year Award, because that must have been very special for him as well, given how much he put forward to this community, to be recognized as well for all of that hard work and community spirit that he brought to the series.
Yeah, it was a really special moment, because it was completely not announced till that night, the finale. He thought that he was coming into the booth to help give out the award. And so at the time, Brandon Limkeman, he was the title sponsor to the league, and he gave a great speech, and we all kind of took Patrick by surprise, and he really wasn't expecting it. But it was definitely a great moment, and such a well-deserved award for all of the things that he did.
Well, glad that we're able to pay tribute to him, George. And before we let you go, I mean, Yes, we are. You know, it's a solemn memory that I'm sure you have to deal with, think about, I should say, here today. But I'm sure as well you are very excited about everything that has happened over the last couple of years in growing the series. And I'm sure Patrick would have been extremely proud of what Lionheart is today.
Oh, absolutely. He certainly would have been in the middle of everything. He was there in those early stages when we were first considering looking for sponsorships. He helped, write some of those letters and help create documents that we send out to various companies. And yeah, I know that, he would have been so excited at how Lionheart's grown. Especially here being on RaceSpot this year and the depth of this field. This racing this year has been fantastic. It's been such a joy to watch. I'm hopeful that the fans have been enjoying the racing that's been brought forth this year, and we're certainly looking forward to the future and what's to come in 2022 and beyond.
Thanks for joining us, George, and glad that we are able to pay tribute to Patrick Taylor. So it's a little bit about the man himself that we are paying tribute to today from the man behind the Lionheart Racing Series. And while we were talking to George and Zaldo, a couple of incidents out on track that have also resulted in the retirement of race winner on Monday for the Lionheart Speedway Series at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, Alexis Newsom. But see if we can dial up first what happened to Andrew Kinsella as the racespottv replay machine finally queues itself up. And Deja Vu locks his wheels up on the entry into Most Corner. Very deep for Kinsella, but at least able to get that car turned around and pointed back onto terra firma. Here's what happened to Alexis Newsom, though, and I believe this is a two-part incident. No, it's going to be a one-part incident. Slams the wall. It's probably day done, JP, because you can see that car's instantly crabbing.
Yeah, immediately broke the suspension, essentially, on that car, and now it's just a matter of getting that car repaired. Here's the slide once more. The second it slams in, boom, immediately knocks the steering essentially off kilter. You can't drive the car like that, especially up at full speed.
And so, adds to the list of retirees that now appears to be 6 cars deep. So, Alexis Newsom, Ron Hacker, and Barrett Rolfe, the most recent of our retirees. Chris Lanini, Scott Holmes, and George Anzaldo round out the 6 cars that will not be taking any further part in today's action. In terms of tire strategy, well, it's kind of playing out as we expected. You can see in this second stint of the race, basically all the drivers on the black mark tire, only Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Ricky Harding on the reds. So we'll see all the cars then switch on over. Red mark alternate tires for that final stint of the race, and only still looking at like 21 laps to go, Justin. So hypothetically, if any car wants to be really, really brave, you could come down very, very soon as we take a look at the weather conditions. It's not really cooled off too much, just 1 degree warmer than when we last took a look at these conditions, but you can see the racing is really closed on up.
Yeah, it's not really cooling too much on down, and that explains in part the decisions with the blacks, as well as the tire deltas not really lost too much. So it's going to be intriguing how it all plays out strategy-wise in turn, absolutely. My thought process is, do you really risk putting yourself on the alternate tires and then have to be on defense where you lose 6/10 to a full second or so at the end of the race? That's a very risky call in my opinion, Arjuna, especially with how this is flowing right now, because it might not work out in a lot of the cases in turn. So do you want to risk, say, a top 7 to say, let's try a Hail Mary type of call on the strategy? Keep in mind, Ricky Hardin, remember, started on the alternates. I'm shocked to see him on a second set, if I'm looking right.
I think you are right, and equally shocked am I, as Henry Bennett releases himself for the final time off of pit road. Slightly contra strategy to the rest of the field, searching for some clean air, but 20 laps, very, very doable. Even when you have no cars to assist you. Still 3 seconds out front for Philip Kraus. These cars should be down onto pit road in about 9 laps or so, because Kraus is already working lap 12 of the stint, and Chris Fowler, the next car to roll himself onto the pit road.
So he is, like we were expecting, going on that cycle to go contra to many of the air competitors. Started off on the alternates, now it's black without any push to passes to propel him forward. He's going to be still in a tough spot the rest of the way. Off and away he goes as Phil Kraus continues to lead.
You are watching coverage of the Lionheart IndyCar Series on racespottv. It is round 17, the Patrick Taylor Memorial Grand Prix of Mosport. Don't go anywhere. Closing stages coming up after this. Welcome back to racespottv for coverage of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. We are north of the border at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for the Patrick Taylor Memorial Grand Prix of Mosport. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside in the racespottv commentary booth is Justin Prince, and a reminder you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/Indy to find your favorite team and drivers in this 51-lap race. Only a couple of laps away from pit stops being imminent in what has been a very difficult race for drivers to pass. Lap traffic starting to play a factor. Connor Harrington in second position has been checked up by Ricky Harding. Here comes Joshua Chin. Here comes Adam Blocker.
Significant amount of time lost as a result of those checkups, and it just shows the difficulty of trying to make passes around here, whether it's lead lap traffic or lap traffic. It's been the trend throughout the day, where you start off is in a comfortable position to try and then defend as long as you don't make any major mistakes, and a majority of the time, the mistakes have seen many drivers tumble down the pylon.
Chin and Blocker have cleared the lap traffic, but that gap has built up once more out of turn 5. Moss corner, such a tricky corner to get right. A couple of cars have already made their final pit stop. They include Chris Fowler, Henry Bennett, Matt Houston, Joe Branch, and Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Houston, Branch, and Nunez all now one lap behind your race leader. Henry Bennett in danger of going one lap down, but of course, Kraus still owes us a pit stop. It's a relatively short trip down pit lane. 26 seconds has been the average pit lane time on that first cycle of stops. Of course now, even though there's going to be a little bit less fuel going into these cars, with stints expected to be anywhere from 10 to 13 laps in the final stage of the race, still going to be a relatively long pit stop, because a limiting factor is not the fuel, but now it's the tires, as Aaron Morgan has lost a whole heap of time now behind Ricky Harding, and Morgan's almost run into the back of him, Justin.
That was in Moss corner that the near contact just happened, and Ricky Harding, especially with some of the more recent rounds of late, especially with Iowa and now today, has not made too many friends. Morgan lost upwards of about a second plus because of the timing of where Morgan caught up to him and how much Morgan had to slam on the brakes to make sure he didn't run over his rear wing.
The tricky part of lap traffic at a circuit like this, which is So fast flowing, so dangerous. If you even stray a little bit offline, you find yourself in the grass, very willing to usher you into tire barriers or into the walls itself that line this facility. Up and over through Moss Corner, more lap traffic now for Aaron Morgan. This time it will be Matt Houston in the team Race First Machine. Ricky Harding now being passed by Mike Razmas at the backside of the shot. Still now waiting for some sort of battle for the race lead. Brian Carey's going to try and take advantage of the lap traffic. Slips on past Harding, but Razmas covers him off, heading in through the S's. Can set a move up into the final corner if you're going to be brave. Does compromise you in the run down to turn one, but Carey's just a little bit too far behind. Doesn't want to play the aggressor this early on because still a long way to go in what is going to be one of the quickest races, Justin, we've had this year, because the laps have ticked on by. We're coming down to those final 10 laps to go.
Well, this is a very fast track, keep in mind, and we're running the distance that is comparable to about a year ago. If you think back to the eNASCAR Roachbrook Qualified iRacing Series that ran this same distance, and that in the trucks, seeing a time difference of about 10-15 seconds to what the Dallara IR18's been able to run. So it's been intriguing how it's all played out, but everyone's been fairly smooth. No major mistakes, no major holdups. They've been able to run their own pace, essentially, throughout the entire day.
Battle brewing between Michael O'Brien and Tyler Graf. This is 11th and 12th positions, and coming out of Moss Corner. We've called it Moss Corner without telling the story, so when this track was being constructed in the late 50s, building up to the first race in the early 1960s, Sterling Moss reviewed the circuit plans and suggested some track changes to result in what is now a very tricky double apex corner, denoted by turn 5A and 5B, as Mike Razmas has come down onto pit road for the final time in today's race. So the corner named after the great Sterling Moss in recognition of that work. And, well, Sterling Moss also won the very first major race that was held here in 1961, a track that's hosted Formula One action when alternated with Mont-Tremblant between 1967 and 71, then became the sole host before in 1977 the Canadian Grand Prix moved to its current home, the circuit Gilles Villeneuve at Montreal. It's known for its unforgiving nature, and at one point was also owned by the great Don Panos, as pit road an exceptionally busy place. Adam Blocker, Joshua Chin have stayed out there, but Philip Kraus, Connor Harrington onto pit road for the final time today.
So those drivers able to go 19, 20 laps in their respective fuel tanks. It seems like Harrington and Carey fairly much in sync. And keep this in mind too. You notice with the pit lines, this is a very tight pit stall section here when it comes to iRacing. It's so easy to overrun your stall by just a couple inches even. No major mistakes I've noticed though today for many of these drivers in the pit lane. Nice and smooth for both of those drivers that time. Harrington though had a half a second quicker pit stop. He took a little less fuel, it looks like.
Kind of reversed the sequence that we saw early on. As you can see, Kraus and Harrington therefore onto the red mark alternate tire. Will mean their outlap is potentially a little bit quicker because it will get up to temperature that little bit more than what we saw in that first cycle of pit stops. But of course it means that at the end of the race, Blocker and Chin will have the benefit of their tires being one lap fresher, as Chin is down onto pit road. But guess who stays out there? Adam Blocker will get at least a bonus point for leading a lap here. I wonder if that was his strategy with 10 laps left to go. 11 laps left to go, sorry.
Yes, I was about to say, we're approaching 10 to go. Either way, this upcoming time by, and that's going to be a major thought process as the season closes on down. Every point could matter towards the end.
Oh, and watch this, Justin. Sorry to cut you off, but Chin has managed to pull the overcut on Connor Harrington. Maybe the overcut is going to work wonders for Adam Blocker as side by side the teammates fight. Rule 1 in racing, do not make contact with your teammate. Not going to be an issue, though. I think Harrington might have this move done and dusted, but Chin is still fighting it back. Down the hill they plunge into Moss Corner. Chin concedes the position.
Yeah, part of that was Chin just executed very well on his pit lane delta, 4/10 quicker than Harrington. But remember, Harrington is in the closer position to Adam Blocker in the standings. Now it's the question, where does Blocker cycle with all this, with his overcut going the longest out of anybody on the fuel tank so far today, 21 laps.
So let's watch and see as, Connor Harrington mounts the curve coming in through the S's. That's not going to be beneficial. Adam Blocker has just begun his roll off of pit road. Is it going to be enough? It is. Blocker, no it's not. As Phil Krause takes the fastest lap, Adam Blocker cycles in side by side with Joshua Chin, but his tires aren't up to temperature and pressure. It's Blocker who still sits in what is 4th position. It's a private label team lockout, private label team high blockout right now of the podium, 1, 2, and 3.
And I think that's got to be the goal at this point, Arjuna. You'd have to think with how they've raced and the give and take they've been giving. Let's not hold each other up. Let's think big picture with the team standings in regards to Harrington and Chin, as well as giving private label team hype a huge moment. Remember, that race we talked about with the 1-2 finish that came into play with Malechka III's victory? That was one of the first, if not the first 1-2 of the season IndyCar or competition. Private label team hype's probably thinking, let's top that today.
Well, while these guys are having a great day out front, their teammate not enjoying the best of runs as Phil Krause goes fastest once more. So 102.327 for the Wisconsin native. Let's take a look at what happened to Jason Brophy. Not the first time that the replay machine has caught something. That's through turn 3, Quebec corner. Oh, Brophy just able to get that one slowed down in time. Cost himself a lot of time and then had a subsequent issue. Where is this one? Through turn 1. It's almost flat, and I have a feeling just going to run himself wide with some understeer. Car pushes out wide. Doesn't lose too much time in this second occurrence. So Brophy currently sits in 19th position as top 4 all using the push to pass. Krause, Chin, and Blocker separated now by 5 seconds, the top 4. And Blocker might be able to take advantage if the Reds fall off like we expect Justin to pop a surprise in the final couple of laps, but it's going to take a Herculean effort to get onto the podium.
Keep in mind, Paul Jenkins is not making it easy at all for this entire grouping. Well, Krause is setting the fastest lap times of the race. These drivers being held up by 6/10 upwards per lap right now, running behind the Aerolex machine. And you can tell a little bit with the frustration with how hard some of these drivers are trying to push in the corners, with the aero wash being fed to them by Jenkins.
And Jenkins is just running his line. And in IndyCar racing, it's not like Formula One where blue flags effectively are pull out of the way and get out of the way. Here it's a lot more of a responsibility on the faster cars to make their way on by. And I tell you what, Harrington might just be a little bit too far behind to make anything happen. What's happened further back, though, as lap traffic works its way through. Razmas is off the track. Brian Carey as well. Not ideal, and we'll take a look at what happened in a few moments' time. Back to this battle for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. No changes as they've gotten around Paul Jenkins.
Almost wonder if it was the case of Carey following Rasmus into that corner and just making the mistake of following the tire tracks with the aero wash. But for Blocker at this point, you've got to find some way, somehow, to make a pass on the racetrack. It's been a tough thing to do today, obviously. But if you can somehow pressurize the mistake, take advantage traffic, something, you can do whatever you can do to try and get the position. Give yourself a shot.
Goes deep into 5A, carries a lot of momentum as we ride on board with the -273 camera from the nose of defending Lionheart King, who's looking odds on to make it 4 in a row. On the button, Chin doesn't respond. Joe Branch is some lap traffic. It's going to be the long way around for Adam Blocker. He's going to have to back out of this one. No, he doesn't. Makes it 3 wide. Chin has the inside line, though. That's where you want to be. I think Blocker has to realize that discretion is the better part of valor. There's a championship on the line. Blocker backs out, but still, 7 laps to go. These 3 cars separated by half a second.
And this surprising thing, too, to think about, too, in all this, for Adam Blocker, for the races he started in, he has been perfect in regards to top 5s. Do you want to lose your top 5 streak in starts? You were in. You have to think about that too, as well as the championship. And this regard, even with the drops in hand. So for Blocker, you got to pick your spots. At that point, Chin, it looked like maybe thought, okay, he's going to back off of this traffic, and didn't.
Well, Chin and Blocker onto the button. Connor Harrington has 2 usages left. Chin, the same marker. Blocker has 4 left. Chin can't afford to hang too far back, I think. He knows that if he lets Blocker take advantage, Blocker will pounce. Chin around the outside this time around. Harrington is the one who has to concede. It's going to be a very interesting battle for what is the final 2 steps on the podium. Phil Krause is well and truly checked out. Harrington's made a mistake. Harrington wide through the final corner. Blocker tries to send it down the inside. They're side by side through turn number 1. Blocker and Nose in front. Through turn 2, they will fight. Blocker knows he can't afford to get involved. Blocker backs out.
I think it was less of wanting to back out and being forced to back out, because it was to the point where Harrington did a bit of a late arc and forced Blocker to clip the grass, it looked like, heading into Clayton Corner. And that's got to be upsetting if you're Adam Blocker. I don't expect him to give as much give and take now as a result of that.
I think Harrington's tires have gone off here, because you can see it wasn't just the side-by-side, but Chin is cleared on off 1.5 seconds up the road. Blocker and Harrington both on the button. Harrington will be left with no push to passes left. It's push to defend as well. Do not forget, Harrington squeezes once more. I think that's a little bit aggressive. I know he wants to finish on the podium, but there's a line that you really need to be cognizant of, and not for the first time. He forces Adam Blocker to back out.
Yeah, I think that was almost strike 2 in the mind of Adam Blocker, if you're thinking that way. 2 times late arced on the same lap. Something's got to give now.
Well, Blocker still has 3 usages left, so this time around, when they come down onto the Mario Andretti straightaway, Connor Harrington has nothing left to defend. It will be a 60 horsepower advantage that Adam Blocker enjoys. Can he get the power down nicely out of 5B? Clips the curb very slightly on the exit. That's not ideal, but in the draft and on the button, using that toe to pull him up as ducking and diving Connor Harrington goes. It's aggressive driving from Connor Harrington, I have to tell you what, and if I'm Adam Blocker, I might just decide to see exactly how aggressive he wants to be. Blocker around the outside though, position done and dusted. Adam Blocker spoils the private label Team Hype 1, 2, and 3.
Nicely done for Blocker, able to hold on as hard as he could on that charge, going into the S's on the outside line. But here's the kicker. Joshua Chin essentially has ran off and away. Blocker can't progress any further on up on the pylon. So now Chin's got that cushion to just be able to hold on to second and still give a 1-2 in the minds of private label Team Hype.
I don't think Blocker's going to mind too much, though. I think his main goal would have been beating Harrington. Of course, yes, he would have loved to beat Chin and would have loved to be in front of Krause, but ultimately, beating your main championship rival would ultimately be all the sweeter. And who can forget as well what we saw at the end of Silverstone between Chin and Blocker heading into the final couple of corners. So there's history between those 2 drivers in this past season, at least with 2 laps to go. This time around for Phil Krause, he's looking in control to take his first Lionheart victory. Let's go ahead then and take a look at what happened earlier. A couple of replays queued up, and for Brian Carey, well, I don't think he necessarily follows Razmas off. They both have very similar issues, but Razmas a bit later in the corner, Carey just a bit sideways, a bit pokey on the entry, as we'll jump on board with the Canadian here. And just take a look. You can see Razmas goes wide, and maybe you're right, Justin. Carey follows him through. Also, something happened to Stefan Larkamp. This is heading in through turn 3. Not the first time we've seen a car go wide. Tony hawking it over the curb. And Michael O'Brien says, thank you very much. I don't need a second invitation. I'll steal that top 10 finish away from you.
Unfortunately, Indy cars don't make good skateboards. Let's put it that way. But of note, Harrington has been driving his car like a driftmobile around some of these corners with how hard he's trying to push to hold on to the draft from Blocker. Is more trouble.
It's Stefan Larkamp, and well, what a day it has been. It was a very strong drive to secure what would have been a top 10 finish, but 2 mistakes in the course of 2 laps demote Larkamp. Let's take a look at what happened on the entry into Moss Corner. Oh, he gets onto the curb on the inside, and from there, nothing he could do to respond. Larkamp noses it agonizingly, slow rolling it into the tire barriers and into damage, inevitable damage for the NHR Esports machine. Out of then, Moss Corner for the final time. Dominant display from Phil Kraus. Justin, other than coming down onto pit road, there was no trouble for the 22 machine.
Dominant from the word go. Qualified on the pole, had speed right on the opening lap to break away to the point where it was difficult to keep up draft-wise. He stayed composed. His strategy was on point. No issues for Kraus today.
In his 4th career Lionheart IndyCar start, Phil Kraus wins, and he wins the Patrick Taylor Memorial Grand Prix of Mosport, presented by Clipping That Apex. Joshua Chin makes it a 1-2 for the private label Team Hype, but Adam Blocker spoils the party and spoils the lockout of the podium positions. The Lionheart King returns to action and finishes in 3rd. It was a great qualifying for Connor Harrington. Great start to leapfrog his teammate. He has to settle for 4th, while Aaron Morgan, not too far behind, finishes in 5th. Oh, what's happened to Mike Rasmussen? Oh, no! Has he crashed coming to the line, or has something else happened here? Straight to the replay machine will go. And in fact, it was after the start-finish line, so fortunate there for a driver in our Retro Series Championship. Pulls to the side of the track and returns to pit road. But the photos will be clicked here for the private label Team Hype. Phil Kraus, Joshua Chin, 1 and 2. I tell you what, for Phil Kraus, if he returns in 2022, I mean, it's going to be hard to stop him, because we've seen Justin, road courses, oval, no matter what you put him on, he is a very talented driver. Going to be the class of the field if he returns next year.
Yeah, he's got a lot of respect in the paddock, especially in the IndyCar community on iRacing, and he showed his raw pace and skill here tonight. Very dominant for Philip Kraus, and as we said, it was the matter of if, not just a matter of if, I should say, but when he would break on through. Philip Kraus, have a day. He dominated to get his first victory of the season.
And some well-earned donuts north of the border. Burn it down, Phil Kraus, winner at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. And with that said, let's go ahead then and take a look at our Carnox race results. I don't think there's going to be too much for race control to have a look at here, so these results should very much be official. Kraus victorious by just over 3.5 seconds from Joshua Chin. Adam Blocker stealing that podium position away from Connor Harrington in the closing stages. Aaron Morgan in 5th, only 0.8 of a second behind Harrington, so for the Graphics LPM team, it's a good qualifying performance from their drivers. Morgan backs it up with a very solid drive in the race itself. Brian Carey in 6th. Ryan Otis, Matt Taylor 7th and 8th, while Mike Rasmussen slid down the field in the early stages. Qualified up in 4th, finishes down in 9th. Michael O'Brien to complete the top 10, while one of our bigger movers was Tyler Groff, worked his way up 7 positions to finish in 11th, while Andrew Kinsella, Adam Frazier both up 3 to 12th and 13th, Lionel Calisto and Chris Fowler to complete the top 15. Brian Beard in 16th, Henry Bennett had an end-of-line penalty to start this thing off with, ends up working his way up plus 10 positions to 17th. Not the most rewarding of days in terms of points-paying positions, but I'm sure a very good drive from the British driver. Stefan Larkamp, Jason Brophy, 2 cars that struggled with some contacts throughout the race and some damage to their machines, 18th and 19th, while Matt Houston rounds out the top 20. Dustin Wardlow, the final car on the lead lap, while Joe Branch, Paul Jenkins, Luis Gonzalez, Nunez, Mike Rigney, and Ricky Harding all finish 1 lap down. Alexis Newsom, the first of the cars to have retired, 27th position. Ron Hacker, Barrett Rolfe, Chris Lanini, the top 30. While early on in the race, Scott Holmes, George Sandman not getting past the opening couple of laps. Disappointment for Holmes and disappointment for Sandman on his return to the IndyCar Series. Fastest lap goes to Phil Kraus, a 1:02.284 set on lap 284. But before we turn our attention to HyperX Victory Lane, let's work our way into the HyperX post-race show. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. And we're actually still waiting for HyperX Victory Lane to be populated by Phil Krause. He's too busy out there and celebrating. So let's very quickly, Justin, talk about this schedule. 5 races left to go after this one. 2 ovals coming up. 3 races in October. It's going to be a busy month for these drivers in the IndyCar Series.
I think the Tricky Triangle is going to be a very tricky race, pun intended there, to say the very least, on how that could fare out, how the strategy and how some of the battles could play out in the importance of draft. But then you have Chicagoland, which always puts together some very solid racing. Those 2 ovals are going to be so intriguing, and how they play out will have a lot of importance on how much that championship gap is before the month of November. Keep in mind, the road courses left on the schedule, they're 2 very different tracks to one another. Road America, big, lawn-flowing corners, lots of speed. Belle Isle, tight, hard braking zones, street circuit. It's going to be very intriguing on how things play out leading up to Auto Club.
And an interesting stat for those who have been following along, 3 first-time winners in the last 3 races. Of course, our trip to the land of the rising sun saw Henry Bennett take his first Lionheart IndyCar Series win. Last time out, it was Robert Malechka, his first win in the IndyCar Series. This time, it's Phil Krause in HyperX Victory Lane. And Phil, great to have you here in Victory Lane. How excited are you to finally win and get that monkey off your back?
Oh, it feels pretty nice after finishing 2nd and 3rd. Most of the races are done outside of Motegi, so finally on the top step, it's always nice. I knew the potential was there, just had to skew it all the way.
How was that race for you? Because, other than the pit stops, you basically led from flag to flag. Dominant display, but I'm sure dirty air, even when you came up on some lap traffic, wasn't the easiest thing for you to deal with.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't too bad outside of the first run where Connor was about a second behind me, because I knew if we kept a train that if I slipped up, made a mistake, which I made a lot of in practice, that he'd be able to get around me. But after the first stint when I had a broken draft, it was pretty clean sailing from there. And then the final run, it was just the reds are a bit more unpredictable than the blacks were, so just keep it on the track for the final few laps.
And I do have a question for you. We were kind of talking about this during the race itself, but I think I saw your face popping into the iRacing Rallycross World Championship. What are you doing there? I believe you're helping out one of the drivers in the Nitro Circus team.
Oh, yeah. Just helping out a friend who needs a spotter,
And so how's that going for you? Because Rallycross and IndyCars, they don't really have too much in common.
I'd love to say it's gone well, but it really hasn't. Just unfortunate luck on the starts most of the races we've been in, so, not much you can do after turn 1 in those Rallycross races. Sorry about that.
No problem. Congratulations, Phil. Go off and celebrate. We'll see you in 7 days' time at the Tricky Triangle.
Yep, thank you, and cheers to Team Hype and all our partners.
It was a private label, Team Hype 1-2, so I'm sure they are delighted. Let's turn our attention to the second step of the podium, where Joshua Chin is standing by with Justin Prince.
The King of Chins had very consistent pace from the word go as well, similar to Philip Krause. You had to battle a little bit at times with that blocker in the final few laps or so before you broke away. After that swap with Harrington, how are you feeling? Second step of the podium.
Oh, it's nice to get a second. The last few weeks of the season have been just kind of all over the place, and it felt like we've had speed and just hadn't had the finishes for the most part, so it's good to get second place. Championship battle's over. That was over 5-6 races ago, but it's nice to just kind of get the season back on track. Good to see Phil get a win. Another good day in team points. So, yeah, I can't be too mad about it.
And you mentioned that importance in the team standings, so very critical with how things continue to play out. What's kind of that roadmap now like for you in these closing stages of the season, knowing You've got a couple ovals left, a couple road courses, and of course, the Triple Crown event to close off the season to try and continue to build up those team points.
It's just trying to get good finishes and be consistent to the end. Maybe try and get up to third in the championship. It's going to be tough with Henry and Kinsella ahead of me, but I think it's possible. The rest of the season kind of works out okay for me. I like Detroit a lot, so hopefully that's a round I can really make up some points. And then obviously having a Triple Crown race in there with a lot of points is huge. But yeah, just have to see how the rest of the season goes and just kind of finish it out consistently.
Now, we talked about this a little bit before tonight's post-race interviews. Next race, Pocono, 80 laps on the docket. Your thoughts on that circuit? It's the 9th running for the Lionheart IndyCar Series at the track.
I like Pocono, so hopefully I can actually get a decent finish this time around. Strategy kind of bit me last time, so Brophy's not in the pit box for this one, so I think I should be okay. I think that curse should be gone, hopefully. Yeah, I like Pocono. It still races pretty well, even with all the changes that have happened in the car in the last year and a half. So I think overall it'll be pretty good.
Congratulations on the run tonight.
Thank you, guys.
So a 1-2 finish for the private label Team Hype, and final step on the podium is Adam Blocker in his return to Lionheart competition. Adam, a couple of sketchy moments for you there at the end, battling with Connor Harrington, but you managed to squeak your way past him and the private label Team Hype dominance of the podium positions. I'm sure you're still pretty happy with third, even though couldn't really fight with Phil Kraus out front.
Yeah, obviously content with the end result, extend the championship lead, but overall kind of just disappointed with qualifying. That's really what cost me with how hard it was to pass here. And then I think I had opportunities. I think I was faster than Josh and Phil, or than Connor. I don't know about Phil, probably not, but I think I had a couple of chances to pass Josh into the final corner. I just didn't get the timing right. And then I had a chance to, if I had gone a lap longer on the first stint, I was like 0.2 of a lap away from going another lap. If I was saving a little bit more, I wasn't even trying to save. If I just saved a little bit, I could have went an extra lap, and with how slow he was on pit exit, I would have beaten him for sure. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing from that, but at least I got past Connor there in the last stint, and yeah, made up ground in the championship. So,
and with a busy October, next time we're racing at Pocono, 7 days after that we'll be at the Chicagoland Speedway before 2 road courses to round things off. I'm one hand on the title, yes, but I'm sure you're not looking, too confidently at, just walking away with the championship. What are the challenges coming up? Of course, Belle Isle is a very treacherous track, to put it mildly, and then our double points finale at Auto Club, where it could be a pack race if we're looking at, certain weather conditions. Still plenty of excitement left to go in this 2021 season.
Yeah, looking forward to the next, at least the next race at Pocono. Honestly, the main race I'm trying to just get through is Chicagoland. That's not a good track for me, so just trying to get through that one. And then Road America, I'm normally pretty good there. And Detroit, it's not my strongest track, but it's the name of the game there is just surviving, and I can normally do that. So, yeah, just trying to get through the races without issues, and hopefully, should be in a good position for Auto Club. So.
And so, final question, Adam. This is the first race that we've had on the latest tire iteration for the IR18. What was it like? Of course, very difficult with the amount of dirty air, but it did seem as though for maybe the first time this year that the black tires were the primary preferred tire in today's action. So, at least a step forward in that regard here on the iRacing service.
Yeah, I think the race, it could have been really interesting if someone up front had done a different strategy, like done in reds on a different stint. And honestly, I just wasn't willing to take a risk with the points and everything. But I think it could have worked out to take it in the middle stint. So, I thought it was interesting. Mosport's always tough to pass with the dirty air, so it wasn't really a big surprise. But yeah, at least we got some action there at the end with the fall off on reds, and Josh and I having better tires than Connor. So,
congratulations on the podium, Adam. Your stretch of top 5 finishes dates back to September of 2020. It's an incredible run, and good luck on the last 5 races of the 2021 season.
Yep, see you guys in Pocono.
So that was Adam Blocker to round out our podium interviews in what was a thrilling race north of the border at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Justin, let's get some final thoughts before we say goodbye. And 4 years at Pocono, 4 years at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park leading into this one, 4 different winners. A 5th race, a 5th winner. Kind of par for the course, and we'll have to go and take a look at the official lead changes after this one, but I have a feeling it was 4 again, so really a race which is dominated by the pit stop strategy.
Funnily enough, for the first time in event history, it is 6. Previously, it was 4 each of the time, so a couple of different lead changes coming in during the second pit stop window in particular breaks the trend previously. But as we've mentioned, Kraus has shown speed from the get-go as soon as he jumped into the machine in this series, finally able to break through, absolutely dominating, to say the very least, tonight. Now it's going to be intriguing how the ovals fare out in turn, because there is a lot that can happen at those tracks, and I was surprised to hear some of the bit of uneasiness from Adam Blocker, a bit about Chicagoland. That's going to be intriguing in turn, and it was around that time last year where the top 5 streak began, correct me if I'm wrong, was Chicago.
You're right, so we'll have to wait and see if the streak ends here in 2021 or if Blocker continues that magnificent run into 2022. So with that said, it is time to say goodbye here on racespottv north of the border at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I'd like to take the time to thank the various partners that make all this possible, starting with buttkicker. For sim racers, the buttkicker Gamer 2 or simulation kit as the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com. And don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code LIONHEART15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders.
The SimXperience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire SimXperience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz and don't forget to use promo code Minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders.
Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Then look no further than the DMLC Racing Channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel.
And it's not just them, but so many more that make all of this possible. To learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, or to find out more about the 3 competition the Lionheart sanctioning body puts on, visit lionheartracingseries.com. So with that said, it is time to say goodbye here from the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. 7 days from now, we'll be back in action from the tricky triangle, the Pocono Raceway. You can catch that action and so much more here live on racespottv. So don't forget to hit the red subscribe button and the notification bell to get notified every single time we go live with the great sim racing series that we get to cover. Also, don't forget to follow on social media for all your esports action. Lionheart Series has you up to date with the latest comings and goings in the virtual paddock, while ESTV has your esports needs covered. For all things sim racing, look no further than racespottv. Follow us on Twitch as well for our live streams when we go live. So from the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, it's a third first-time winner in consecutive races. Congratulations to Philip Kraus, winner in the Lionheart IndyCar Series north of the border. For now, so long and goodbye.